Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new chess video. I present to you the Dutch defense. This fearsome defense you see right now on the board. It's so simple and so effective that I'm absolutely sure that once you finish watching this video, most of you will start playing this defense in all of your games. When can we use the Dutch defense? When they play the queen's pawn? Okay. We're going to play the Dutch defense when they play d4. The Dutch defense is this move right here, 5-5, and it hides some plans that are going to blow your mind. The most common move order for the white pieces is to first play c4. Actually, the great thing about this defense is that we don't really care what our opponent does because we're always going to do the same thing, that thing we like so much. Our second move, let's remember it well, will be e6. For now, we can already see that our attack is going to go towards this side. You always have to learn to read and learn to talk with your pawns. Wherever your pawn chain points is where your attack is going to go. Here, white can make several moves. Among the most common are knight c3, developing a knight, or knight f3, developing the other knight. They're the two most used, but we don't care because we're going to play knight f6, and now when they play knight c3, which we were expecting, we'll make this move that you have to remember. When they play knight c3, we'll come with the bishop to b4. A very important move. Why is this move so important? Now you're going to see. Here, white can do many things. A horrible move would be trying to kick out this bishop from here. Because what we want is to exchange this bishop. For this knight, we want to do it no matter what. So if they play a 3, they're letting us capture while gaining a tempo. A much better move would be e3, for example, right? Keeping the center solid so they can also develop the bishop. But no matter if they play e3, what do we want to do? Exchange this bishop for the knight. Now, I'm sure many of you are thinking, wait, chess teacher, how can it be that on the fourth move, I'm already giving the opponent the bishop pair for nothing? Well, this is very important because if you're watching this video, you'll understand. What we want to do in the Dutch defense is fight for this square right here called the e4 square. Why is this square so important? Because it's going to allow us to control the whole game. So if we know that we want to control e4, we just eliminated a defender of the e4 square directly, because this knight was defending it perfectly. And besides, this square is a light square, right? So our dark squared bishop could never defend this square. We've traded a bishop that would never fight for this square for a knight that's the perfect defender of this square. And now you'll see why it's so important to control the e4 point. Alright, here, if you've understood the logic of this position, you'll know that we must control this square. For example, after castling, they could play bishop e2, or a bit more precisely, bishop d3. Why? You already know. And so, we, following our plan, are going to reason for a moment. This bishop can't get out this way because it has a very large pawn barrier. So I'm going to develop it through the b7 square. And where does it point from the b7 square? Exactly, to the point we want to control. And not only that, but it points directly at the opponent's castled king. So what are we going to do here? Bishop e7. As you can see, with this defense, if you understand the ideas, you'll be clearly superior to your opponents. That's why my purpose in this video is for you to perfectly understand the ideas, and you'll see why we have many little tricks they can fall for. White, there are so many. Here, serious question. What could the white pieces do? As you can see, they have a difficult development. They'd love to break with e4 to free their bishop, but breaking with e4 isn't possible. Why? Because we've done our job very well of controlling this central square, so they can't break through. This bishop can't get out here. If they want, they can try to develop it via 3, but that's not a good move, because we simply block it with d6, and they're actually helping us. Now this bishop does absolutely nothing, and they've helped us leave a free gap to develop our knight without wasting time. So if they play bishop a3, either now or later, you just have to remember that we'll play d6. For what? to cut off the bishop's diagonal. Simple as that. Now then, why is bishop a 3 usually not the best plan? Because here, an interesting plan for the white pieces is to launch the a-pawn into the attack. We really don't care much what they do to us. For example, if they try to jump toward the center, we must apply logic. d6, which would make this knight retreat once again. Therefore, as you can see, white doesn't have many moves to make. Alright, so here, we can't waste any more time. We must act quickly. And what is that move where we must act quickly? Knight e4. We've done it. We've placed this absolute beast on one of the best squares, if not the best square on the board. Not only does it attack the c3 pawn, but it controls some super important squares. We've placed the knight, as Nimzowitsch used to say, in an outpost. And if we have the knight in an advanced post, it's going to allow us to control the game. Alright, here we're attacking the c3 square. White can do several things. The first thing they could do would be to defend the pawn, but now let's see what would happen if they do that. You must be very careful. Remember this well, okay, friends? Remember this well. Be very careful if they play knight to d2. They're pulling back the knight, but most importantly, they're giving us the c3 pawn for free. Should that pawn be taken? No, and I'll explain why. If we take this pawn that at first glance seems free, they simply play queen to c2, and where do we move this knight? Well, the only square it has is to retreat to the e4 square, so that they could exchange it, and as you can see, white has recovered the pawn, they're left with a better center, they attack us very hard, they also attack us through here, and most importantly, we've been left without our entire attack and without our knight. That's why we don't want to, and this is very important. If they play knight to d2, this missing pawn, if they play knight to d2, we don't want to take here. But don't worry, because we have an excellent move. Queen to h4. And now the problems begin for white, as you can see. All of our pieces are pointing towards the castled king, including the rook, which can join the attack. Here, there are 2 typical moves, which are the 2 that are always played against me, and both of them lose. Alright, the most typical one that they'll play against us almost every time is g3. They're threatening the queen. This queen here is very annoying. Since we're not threatening anything, they kick it out so that we leave. But here, friends, we have an incredible move. What is that move? Instead of moving the queen away, knight to g5 is spectacular. They can't take our queen because one of the most beautiful checkmates I've ever seen in my life would follow. Knight to h3, checkmate, since this bishop cuts off every possible escape for the king. Therefore here, if they attack the queen, knight to g5, this queen cannot be captured. But it's not just that the queen can't be captured, it's that, watch out, against almost any move we have knight to h3. In this case, it would be checkmate again, because this square is controlled by the knight, and these 2 are controlled by the bishop. Therefore here, let's see, this move here, queen to h4, which is very good, it's not possible to kick out this queen with g3. Alright, chess teacher, it's not possible to kick out the queen with g3. So what are we threatening? Actually, we're not threatening anything here. You're absolutely right. This queen is aiming here, but no one else is aiming here. That is, the only thing we're really threatening now is to take on c3. Now, it would be possible, because this queen is supporting the d4 point. So, if we were to take here, queen c2 would no longer work because we could move back, and this spot is really well defended. So here, what are the white pieces always going to do? Defend the c2 square. And if they don't, it's to kick out our quill. But here, once again, we've won the game. I'll explain how to deliver checkmate in this position because it's simple. You just need to pay close attention. We're easily going to let this bishop enter by first exchanging this knight, thus freeing up the entire diagonal for the bishop. Very well, and now chess teacher, it seems like we've run out of an attack. The queen is aiming at dark squares. The bishop is aiming at light squares. It doesn't look like we're going to get checkmate here. Well then, remember this spectacular bombshell well. Look, I love this opening. Really, I'm telling you. Leave a like if you want more videos on this opening because I really do love it. bishop takes g2 ends up being a definitive move. If they don't accept the sacrifice and decide to move the rook, they're going to have a very hard time because we'll simply place the bishop here and end up giving mate. So this sacrifice must be accepted. Once the sacrifice is accepted, there's no way to save themselves. Our plan, place the queen on f3. Right? Place the queen on f3. How? Well, very simple. First we give check, and now when the king moves, he couldn't go here because it's in check. He must go to h1. We place the queen on f3 and with check on top of that. As you can see, we have the queen cutting off the king, and now all we have to do is enter with the rook. That's all we have, right? A queen and a rook, and they're going to be enough to deliver checkmate. What can white try here as a last resort? Well, move the rook anywhere to be able to escape through here, because otherwise, rook g6 would be checkmate. But don't worry, because we're going to deliver it just the same. Remember this, if they've moved the rook to escape on this side, we're going to apply consistency. Do we want them to escape? No. Well, this queen changes sides, and now the diagonal we control is this one. So that, what are we threatening? Rook g6 followed by queen g2, checkmate. The only way they can try to resist, as you can see, I'm explaining all the possible defenses so that whatever they do, you manage to checkmate them. The only thing that can try to resist is king h1. So that if we now place the rook here, they can play rook g1 defending against everything. But these are simple illusions. We're going to force the king to move back here. And how are we going to do it? With rook h6. As you can see, we're threatening mate in one. Is there any piece that can come to defend? No. The only way the king can try to escape is by making this move here. But simply now, since we have the queen's barrier, rook g6 check, the king has to come here as the only move, and queen g2 checkmate. What I'm going to show you now has allowed me to win many games, so pay attention. When we play knight e4, our favorite move in fact, we've built the whole bunker to place our knight on e4, as I was explaining. We just saw that knight d2 was a dangerous double-edged move, but if we know it, we'll end up delivering checkmate. Careful, if you hadn't seen this video, you would have captured this pawn here for sure. But alright, knight d2 might not be the most popular move, especially if the level of play isn't high elo, right? What's the most popular move if we attack a pawn? Defended it. So queen c2 is the most popular move of all. It's defending the pawn on c3, and now it's attacking this knight with several pieces. It's putting a lot of pressure on the e4 square. Alright, here comes one of my favorite little opening tricks. It's a trick that everyone falls for. We're going to play knight c6. It's a very important move. Why? Because they're threatening to advance this pawn quite a bit with serious consequences, because they could start attacking us a lot on this flank. Knight c6, first of all, stops this possible pawn advance, because we'd simply capture it. Alright, but what happens with knight c6? It stops defending the most important thing in the position. So here the players with the white pieces start like this with their hands. I've managed to win a pawn on e4 because look, how many pieces are attacking? 1 and 2, how many are defended? Just a pawn. So here white says, well, I'll capture this knight. Bishop takes e4. Pawn takes and queen takes. They've managed to win a pawn, and not just any pawn, but the most important pawn in the position. But this is a serious mistake, friends. What are we doing? Well, now we're going to hit the queen with a discovered attack with knight h5, gaining a tempo. Very good. This queen must retreat, but be careful because we're threatening this pawn, so the queen must go to d3. And now what? Is the attack over? Well, no, we've won the game. And the game is won in the following way. Brutal rook sacrifice, the knight falls and everything. Rook takes f3, we've won a whole piece, so they must capture. And simply, the queen and the bishop are going to deliver checkmate. Queen g5, check, only move, king h1, and now bishop takes f3, checkmate. So we know we should play knight c6, right? Remember it well, to prevent them from advancing here. And to tempt our opponents a little bit to capture this knight on e4. Many of you will tell me, but this is simple as cutting off the diagonal. And then capturing this knight. And watch out, this looks very good, and in fact, it's been played against me many times. But it's sickle, I'll explain that. Even if they don't fall for your little tricks, you can keep pressing and win the game anyway. For example, what if they attack our knight? What's our plan? Well, we move it away. Right now, we're not threatening anything, but our opponent could capture this knight here, winning the pawn. And chess teacher, what happened? You lost the pawn for nothing in return. Well, no. Don't worry, because our attack is much stronger than the pawn. Queen to e8 is a move that will always serve you, because when you can't enter through the dark squares, you switch the queen. The queen is very flexible and will enter through the light squares. And watch out, because here I often find some very serious mistakes. For example, this queen is being targeted by discovered attacks, so a very interesting move could be to bring the queen over here. Right now it wouldn't be possible because we'd have a fork. So, well, taking the queen through here, for example, right? But we don't care about this because our rook, our bishop, our queen, everything is well placed to win the game. Let me explain. Here we could already win directly with this. We attack the rook, and now we attack the queen. Typical maneuver for this knight when they decide to advance the pawn to e5, because they leave us this great square for our knight. We attack the queen, and here we've already won the game. How do we win the game? Let's see. I'm going to try. If you want, you can pause the video to see who gets the move right. I'm going to give the solution right now. The solution is as follows. Rook takes f3. Once again, the rook to the rescue, winning the game. Why? Because now, queen to g6, it's not that it's mate, but it's check, and we win the rook, because it's the typical double attack. So here, we would win the rook, and we'd surely already have a strong enough advantage. Plus, the king is very exposed, so we could also enter with the bishop to win the game. This bishop can't move either, because then we would capture the other rook. Don't tell me the Dutch doesn't hide some beastly attacks. It's also very possible that instead of developing the bishop to d3, they develop it to e2. The plans are very similar. The good thing is that if you remember the ideas well, you're going to manage to win many games. Pay attention to this. Castling, castling. Our opponent can play, for example, a 4, a typical attack plan that, watch out, is very dangerous if we don't know how to stop it. But of course, since we know how to stop it, there's no problem. Knight to e4, a very important move that we're always going to make. That means if it occurs to you to play knight to e4, that you study this video or any video on the Dutch, well, okay. Very well, here we're attacking this pawn. Well, it must be defended. The most logical is queen to c2. Very well, whenever they play a 4 against us, what are we going to do? Knight to c6. We've decided that that attack won't have a future with knight to c6. Now they couldn't even trade this knight for the bishop because now the bishop isn't even attacking the knight. But be careful because it's also very good here. How should we continue? Well, look, here the star move we're going to make will be the following. Our idea is to play knight to a5. A great move. Why? Because this knight on a 5 is very well placed. You remember what I told you? We traded a bishop for a knight on move 4. Why do you do that, chess teacher? Well, look, thanks to all these weaknesses, the knight here attacks this point right here. It also attacks this point here on many occasions. We could also pressure with a6, and most importantly, who kicks the knight out of here? No one can. So this knight is very well placed. For example, if they decide to play bishop a6 here, bishop a3, you don't even need to play d6. You can directly play rook h6. It's a move that's always going to work for us. Whenever we can pass the rook through this rank here, and they play bishop a3, we can play rook f6. Very good move. All right, what happens if, for example, they play, first of all, come on, let's say this one. Let's play this, we play this, and now they try to exchange this very strong knight we have on e4. Very good move. Well, suddenly, the only thing we have to do is the following. We capture here, and now we'd have a fork, queen, and rook. We'd be winning the exchange. That's why it wouldn't be possible right now to try to exchange this knight here. And many of you would tell me, chess teacher, this is solved quickly. First, before all this, I play knight d2 so that you can't progress. That is, for example, before you play the knight through here. I try to exchange the knights. Would this be possible? Yes, but don't worry because it's very simple. Okay? It's very simple. Knight takes, queen takes. We place the knight here, threatening a fork. The queen has to come to defend, and now what are we going to do? Well, we have multiple possible moves. If they attack the rook first, well, this comes through here. It's not rocket science, okay? We threaten the fork, it comes through here. It's just understanding the ideas, but you should know that this game is practically already won. Alright, now they've moved aside here. What we're gonna do is try to come and make a checkmate attack. We attack with the rook, we want to enter with the queen, we want to enter with the bishop. This looks dangerous. And surely here you must make a decision. The queen is entering through here with quite drastic consequences. So here it's very tempting to play g3. It seems to defend everything. It defends the queen's entry. It's true that it opens this bishop, but well, afterwards everything can be defended well, or even do this to defend, right? But no. Here we've already won the game with a fabulous move. Look, I'm simply explaining attack plans that you can use in all your games. The queen enters through h4, sacrificing herself entirely. Queen h4, double exclamation mark. What a great move. It threatens checkmate 1. They can only capture this queen if they want to save themselves, but they aren't saved either, because thanks to our bishop and our rook, we're going to give check. The king is immobile. Thanks to our bishop, they could simply block with the bishop, but on the next one, it would be rook takes bishop, checkmate. Alright, and now comes the best part of all. You remember what I told you, right? We're here to trade. This is the basis, this bishop for this knight for what? To wreck the pawn structure and to control e4, but many times they don't let us wreck this pawn structure. And for example, they defend the knight. Queen b3 is a move that I come across in many games, and I love it when they play it against me. I love it. It defends the knight and attacks the bishop. One thing you should know here. Do we want to trade this bishop for this knight? Yes, but for now, we're going to try to delay it as much as we can. For example, at this moment when they're threatening us, we're going to play a 5. And here, look, whenever I've played this, they've always responded with a 3. You kick this bishop out and say once and for all, either you leave or you trade, right? Or not, because we have a great move, and I always play it very fast, so they think I've hung the bishop. A 4 threatens the queen. It's not possible. Pawn takes because we would capture the queen, right? But of course here, white thinks, well, then I'll capture it with the queen, and absolutely nothing has happened here. I have an extra bishop, and I have a practically won game. Well, no, what we've managed to do is trap their queen. Incredible, and I've done it many times. Knight c6. We've managed to trap the opponent's queen. It only has 2 squares. If the queen comes to b5, simply rook a5, and the queen is left with no escape. If the queen comes to c5, it's exactly the same, but first we must play the subtle b6 to force the queen to move to this square, and now rook a5 would manage to win the queen. If they develop this knight first, you develop this one to wait for them to develop the other. But if they play knight c3 first, you can come directly with the bishop. There's no problem at all. You've already seen that queen b3 doesn't scare us at all. On the contrary, we love it because we have this plan to trap the queen. But what happens if queen c2? Because here it defends the knight very well. Should we capture it? Well, for now, no. Our idea is to capture it, yes, but when they force us, because that way our opponents lose a tempo. For example, we can continue developing knight f6. Our opponent can play knight f3. Castling, they can play, for example, if they play a3 here, and that way we would capture, right? They can recapture with the queen, which is why they've placed it there. And, for example, I can play b6, a very important move to control the important diagonal, and especially the e4 point. Very well. What happens if they play bishop g5 against us? Because I come across this a lot too, especially people who don't control the openings very well. At this moment, it's not a bad idea to play bishop g5. We just have to be consistent. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to play d6 to defend it with the other knight. And in the future, move the queen, for example, to e8, so it passes through here, and at this moment, we'll already be able to jump with this knight through here, and the other will be replaced through here. For example, I'll explain it to you in a really easy way. e3, we play knight bd7, bishop e2, we can already play queen e8 directly, or, first, maybe better, position the bishop well. Now then, queen 8, and whatever our opponent does, say, I'm just making this up, an attack on the queen side, we could already come through here. We'd even be threatening the queen and the bishop too. And why is that? Because the other knight has come to help. So remember this, when they pin this knight with the bishop, the other knight comes to help, and the plan is the same. Jump to e5, but careful, move the queen first so we don't lose it. And now comes the most fun part of the video. Pay attention to the next moves. To show you that what I'm saying is true, and that no matter what they play, we can carry out our plans, I'll show you this game real quick, where white played knight c3, black came straight into pin, and white played bishop d2, a move we haven't even covered in the video. Does it matter? No, because we know the plans inside out. b6 to control his square. The game continued with knight f3, bishop b7, as you can see, the usual, e3, knight f6, black is preparing really well. Do we take here? No, not for now, because they're not kicking us out. So what does white do? Excuse me, what does black do? Well, they keep developing their pieces. Here, white has been annoying again and hasn't threatened, but instead they've castled. No problem, d6 and so on as much as you want. I'm going to play the knight over here. And in the game here, they already played a 3, a logical move that has to come sooner or later, right? They forced us, to capture this knight right here. After bishop takes, we've recaptured this knight. Now then, this knight on e4 is the master and commander of the position. We're threatening to win this bishop wherever it goes. The only possible one is e1, which is actually a good move because it defends everything. That's what the white pieces get. And now, simply knight d7. As you can see, the plans are similar. Knight d2. Now, when the knight moves away, it leaves us a clear path for the queen. And look at this black player, how well he finished it off. Question, if they capture this knight, what do we capture with? With the bishop or with the pawn? Well, here, the most natural thing would be to capture with the bishop, but the best move would be to capture with the pawn. If we capture with the bishop, it's true, we don't double pawns. It'd be the most natural. And besides, we don't block it up like we do this way, but this pawn right now acts as a brutal stopper. In fact, we're threatening to move the rook through here. Even bring the other one, bring the knight and deliver checkmate. So it seems the only way they have to break free is f3, but it wouldn't be possible because the queen would come in with check. So how did white do it to try and resist this position? Well, they defended this pawn to try and play f3. Very good idea. Black, well, what do? Rook f6, a move that, as you can see, would occur to all of you if you studied this video well. Now then, f3, and simply what the black pieces did was exchange this pawn right here. Now exchange the bishop, as you can see, and I simply bring the other rook so that I double the rooks and the opponent is far from bringing their other rook to the defense. Alright, so now we're threatening to win a rook, right? Rook takes rook, queen takes rook, it could even be rook takes queen. Remember, this pawn is pinned, so white captured here. Knight takes to bring the knight into the attack on both the e4 square and the g4 square. And white simply made another mistake here. They keep making tiny errors. You'd really have to be an extremely strong player not to make them. It's very difficult to play with the white pieces against this defense. e4 to make a discovered attack, the queen simply moves away, and now this pawn is captured since it's being attacked by two pieces. White played rook x1, but this already seals the game, because after rook takes rook, king takes rook, queen f6 check would come, and when the king moves, queen takes pawn. And as you can see, it's check, and not only is it check, but now we're also going to capture this bishop right here. Obviously, white resigned at this point. As you can see, white didn't do exactly what I explained, but the plans are always the same. If you'd like me to show you a real game of how to apply the opening or defense at the end of each video, let me know in the comments. I like to do whatever you guys enjoy watching the most. So save this video to study it as many times as you need. Some will have it down after 2 times, others might need 7 or 8, that's fine. As many as you need, the video will be there for free forever, whenever you want to watch it, so make sure to save it. I hope you loved it, and we'll see each other tomorrow, as always, in the next video, friends. Goodbye.